kind of like when I was talking about yoga and falling in love with your body. I mean, so much of weight loss and the conversation we have is about like what we don't like about ourselves or what we're missing, and there's so little talk about health gain. And I want to flip the narrative a little bit, because we can be healthy in so many different shapes and sizes of bodies. Yeah. So it's not about losing weight and being obsessed with this number. Yeah. And actually, it's funny because since I've been lifting weights, I've gained weight.
Yeah.
And like that
Muscle
was hard
weighs
for
more
me.
Than fat.
Yeah. And it was a struggle. It's like, well, no.
Right. Don't get caught in that.
Yeah. That it's not about the number. It's about gaining health. And what is it that you want?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm very honored and excited to have on Ashley Elenbaas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here and in my home. This is so cool.
This is great. And I was actually talking to Amanda this morning and I was like, holy darn. I want to say it's like 1 year to the date that we were supposed to hang out here with you, because we were on that heading back from Oregon road trip. So it's actually really great timing. The flowers are blooming, and I'm hoping we get to take a little garden walk with you later in the interview. But for now, let's get to know Ashley a little bit more. How'd you get into this whole herbal thing?
Well, I was one of those kids that loved being outside and like making potions and perfumes and grinding things up and climbing trees. So I think for me, I just remember, part of it was I just felt a kinship with the plants from a very young age. And it was really more the trees, I think, that kind of started it for me. And one of my earliest memories was going in the backyard and realizing who's taking care of the trees? Like, who's looking out for them? Oh. And so I went in and I got my dad's big bucket for washing his car and the big sponge, and I filled it with soapy water and I started washing the trees.
Oh my gosh.
And singing to them. And I was like, I'll take care of you. And I did that with the birch and the cherry. And there was just this sense of like reciprocation I felt with the trees in my little Columbia, Maryland backyard, little suburban plot. But, I really felt a kinship with them, and I just kind of had a sense too that they could feel that, and that they gave me also a sense of peace by just being there. And there were a lot of trees too, that pine trees that we would climb and play spaceship in, and I just always had an affinity for nature, the outdoors, and plants.
Okay. Do you currently have any personal plant allies with regards to trees, like any particular trees that you're really drawn to, or is it just all trees?
I mean, I do love all trees, but I think the oak has a particular significance. My grandfather's from Lithuania, and so in the Lithuanian tradition, they were actually one of the last groups of people to be Christianized. They in his particular area, they were practicing a very kind of animistic way of life. And in Lithuania, the oak tree is considered to be a god. And they actually build roads around the big oaks. And he sent me pictures of some of the oaks from his village, where there's like beautiful ribbons tied and prayers, and people gather like on these major holidays and celebrate life. And the oak tree is like the giver of life. So I think the oak tree has always been a symbol for me of my roots and ancestry, and then also just stability, steadiness, aging gracefully,
Yeah.
and giving back too with the acorns. Just they're so abundant in the way they just give themselves away, and I really love that.
I want to say I read on your Instagram account the little quote from Ashley Elenbaas: "If I could come back as anything, it'd be an oak tree." Am I right?
That's right.
That's awesome.
It's true. If I could pick to be any tree,
yeah,
it would be the oak. Yeah, there's just something very majestic and lasting about them.
Yeah, actually, when my daughter was born, we planted her like the placenta
cool.
with the Oregon white oak, Quercus garryana, something like that. But yeah, it's also a very special tree to me as well. So that's really neat to hear. So So you started as a young child, very infatuated with the trees. By the way, do you still wash the trees with soap?
I don't. I don't think it's good for them. I don't think. Yeah.
Maybe Dr. Bronner's.
Yeah, Dr. Bronner's, or I do water them. You know,
yeah, that's a form
but
of...
I think soap. I think I didn't realize I might have been there might have been a bacterial biome I was disrupting.
It probably still really loved that human touch and the interaction that you had with it. So
I hope so. And I really do think like singing to the trees, like that's such an old practice.
Yeah.
Like that's, children do it because I think there's some intuitive part of them that understands that singing and communicating with nature. Like it's just such a natural thing. And so, I think that it liked that part of it.
Okay. So I have to imagine you're not just singing. Are you making up songs, or is there a specific song, or is it just the very mere act of singing to the tree is what's beneficial for it? Like, so if you were to recommend to me or the listener how to sing to plants and sing to trees, where would we start?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, it was just kind of like things that would come to mind, like stream of consciousness type of songs, freestyling. Yeah. Now, when I'm in my garden, I love the Grateful Dead.
Oh,
so
really?
I'll sing I'll just hum songs. Like it doesn't even have to be words, but songs that I love, that I'm into. I'll just hum while I garden or hum while I prune the trees. And I just think it's a vibration. Yeah. So it's like I'm here and I'm trying to vibrate something that's beautiful, hopefully. I don't know.
Will you sing for us right
now?
No,
definitely not. But this idea that I'm trying to create something beautiful and to offer it, and it's a vibration. And that I think, the trees, we know that they have their colors are vibration that's being carried. And even if we listen, we can put electrodes, like they have these machines now. Yeah. Plant Wave is one that you can hook it up to the leaves and you can hear the vibration of the way that their cells are moving and the way that the fluids are moving through the leaves. So they are making sound too. So I think it's just like another way of just trying to connect vibrationally with the plants.
That's so wild to think about. It almost feels as if science is like approaching spirituality with those types of technology happening. Yeah. So that's incredible. There's such an overlap between deadheads and herbalists.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you were a deadhead. That's really interesting. You're also into Joni Mitchell as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
You sing Joni Mitchell to them out there?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Touch of Green. Okay. I mean, there's so many. Yeah. And I have her on vinyl, so I'll listen while I make my herbs to Joni Mitchell. And definitely there's a lot of deadheads. I mean, I think to me, one of the bridges between my love of plants and then getting into yoga in the herbal world were psychedelics. Mm-hmm. And that was a way big part of the Grateful Dead scene, which was just people understanding that they wanted to open their mind. Yeah. And culturally, we don't have rituals.
Right.
We don't have, rites of passage that bring us from youth into young adulthood. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, myself, I started listening to the Grateful Dead when I was 16. Mm-hmm. And I got to go to a few shows before Jerry died. And
wow.
I got to see him twice. And then I did Further Tour and Fish Tour and all those things. But that was a whole scene of coming of age for me. Yeah. And it was based in there's something bigger that we don't understand, and let's take these different things, tap into it, let's listen to music and tap into it. And I think for me, that is part of my foundation as an herbalist, is understanding like there is so much more that the plants can tell us and teach us if we just open our minds a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned psychedelics. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about microdosing. In fact, dear listener or viewer, you have a great YouTube channel, and I want to say you come out with new videos every week. Mm-hmm. They're typically, I want to say 30 to 60 minutes, but they're super information packed. You'll have guests on occasionally. And you did a video in the past few months, I want to say, on your journey with microdosing, not to be confused with macro dosing or heroic doses, which I've definitely partaken in many a time in my lifetime. But I've experimented a little bit with microdosing. I think it'd probably be really good for me to test out. But can you just give a brief overview and maybe entice the listener to go check out your full 30 minutes on the, maybe it might have been a longer video.
Yeah.
But what's your experience with microdosing with psilocybin?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, there is macro dosing where you get this really full-fledged sensory psychic experience, and not everyone wants to go there, which I get. And some people mentally are so sensitive they can't go there safely. Yeah. So I think microdosing is a nice way for people to enter into that sort of the psychedelic sphere without having to go all the way and without losing contact with the reality that they know and love. Or they at least are more tolerable, can tolerate a little bit more. But what I really love about it is that the science now, all of Paul Stamets' work that's come out, is really showing that small amounts of psilocybin, when done over time, can change our neural pathways. So it can actually help us make connections in the brain that we hadn't made before. Like, for example, with my kids, our nighttime routine of like, how do we get our kids to go to sleep? Because that's like, a challenge for a lot of parents. So when I was microdosing, all of a sudden I was able to more, I think, clearly perceive my children's actual needs. Because we all run these scripts and we get stuck in these patterns of, well, this is what I do and this is how I respond. But just a little bit of psilocybin has you open up your mind so you can say, is this how I want to respond? Oh my gosh, I didn't notice that subtle cue from my daughter. She actually is afraid. She needs a little bit more reassurance. And if I can reassure her, oh look, now she's going to sleep. But if I keep saying, it's time for bed, and I keep doing the same thing, we create the same dynamic. It's a push and pull. And so I think what microdosing does is it gives us an opportunity to see the other in a way where we can, and we actually start to empathize and be like, oh, I see you, I see what you need. How can I alter the way that I am to help? And I think in the world today, that's a great gift for us to see other people who are maybe different than us or have different opinions or views of the world, and to say, oh, I see where you're coming from. How can I be more compassionate? Or how can I make space in my mind to see your point of view so that I'm not having such a strong reaction? And, we can sit here and have a nice, enjoyable lunch together, So I think that there's a lot of potential benefit of microdosing for people in general. Yeah.
And just to be clear, this is not medical advice, which you also say in your lengthy delve into the psilocybin, and I really appreciated everything you said there. And it's a way to increase empathy for others. And if you do end up doing a macro dose, you'll notice connecting with other people, plants, and animals in a way unlike you've ever experienced before. And I could see how just taking that tiny little bit amount could increase it a little bit.
Yeah.
And, I thought for a second you were going to say you microdose your kids before they went to bed.
No, they get a lot of herbs before
they get
bed.
chamomile, exactly.
But no.
So use it at your own risk. I mean, and another thing I wish I would have known early on, because I want to say I first experimented when I was like 18. And we just were reckless with it. We were like using it as a quote unquote party drug or something like that. And that's not the way to do it. These substances are to be respected because these are super powerful medicines, and don't take it lightly, and seek the qualified healthcare practitioner, that spiel.
Yeah. And there are actual clinics now that do psilocybin dosing in a medical setting. So there are, you can look, I know in Minneapolis at the University of Minnesota, they have a psilocybin study that they have open enrollment for. So people can come and try both macro and micro doses in a safe clinical environment. So that's it's nice to know that that's also becoming more available too.
And more destigmatized, which is incredible that we're actually able to even have this conversation.
Oh, I know.
10 years ago, could we talk about this?
No, you'd be afraid that the drug enforcement would be knocking at your door. And I think too, the Drug Enforcement Agency in the state of Minnesota has decriminalized it, and so you can actually grow mushrooms. You can grow psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, in your home, and you can buy them and use them. So long as it's for self-use and you're not trying to sell them or make money from them, and that they won't come after you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool that because I think the drug enforcement, they're starting to see that actually this is more helpful than harmful. When done in these respectful ways. And so it's interesting to see the cultural change around psilocybin and cannabis. Like a lot of plants and mushroom medicines are starting to I think our culture is starting to open up to them more as more science comes out and more people are having good, healthy, positive experiences with them.
Absolutely. You mentioned Paul Stamets' work. How about Michael Pollen? Yeah. Do you delve into his work at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, his book.
Changing Your Mind, or?
Yeah, Changing Your Mind. And then what was the first book he did on the cannabis, potatoes?
Oh, that was Botany of Desire.
Botany of Desire.
Yeah,
that book like changed my mind. Like when I first read that book, I was like, yes.
Yeah. He's awesome.
He's an incredible thinker.
Yeah.
And also the work of Monica Gagliani.
Okay, I don't know that.
She's an Australian. She started off in marine biology. And she had this image, this call to go to the Amazon. And so she went to the Amazon and started working with indigenous people and has done all these experiments on plant intelligence and plant communication. It's called Thus Bespoke the Plant.
That's cool.
It's a cool book. And she's like in her 30s and she's just like mega science, but also like very, very open to the way indigenous people use and communicate with medicine. So
that's the best.
Yeah.
I'll try to remember to leave a link in the podcast show notes in the YouTube description. All right, so we got drugs out of the way. Unless there's something else you want to talk. Okay, cool. That's life-changing. I also know yoga has been a big part of your life. How has yoga changed your life, first of all, but also informed your herbal practice?
Yeah, I found yoga. So actually I did my first yoga class here in Minneapolis when I was 12. I have a really cool aunt. I hope for everyone out there you have a cool aunt or someone in your family who's like... So she took me to a yoga class. I was living in Maryland. We were visiting over the summer and she took me to a yoga class and I just remember for the first time feeling like I was actually in my body. Like, oh, I have a body and it's like this vessel and I can control my breath and I can witness my mind. So when I went to college in Asheville, North Carolina, I sought out yoga and meditation classes, which they had at the university. So I was 18, I started doing yoga, meditation, and but I was also doing a lot of drugs.
Okay.
And I also had an eating disorder. So there was a lot going on. But the yoga, I started doing more and more and more of that and getting more in my body and actually starting to like my body and feeling strong in my body and in my mind. And it was like, I was reflecting on this in a video the other day, but it was like the yoga slowly helped me release the part of me that had the eating disorder. Like that part of my mind that was like, you'll never be thin enough, you'll never be pretty enough, like, you know, don't eat that thing, just all of those voices. And I started kind of, as I became more in my body, those voices got quieter. And so when I say like yoga saved my life, I mean it really did, because those voices were mean and unkind and damaging to me. And to have those voices fade out and be replaced by voices that were kind and loving and self-affirming, and to look at my body and go like, I can do this crazy shape, like who knew? And that my body is energy. I really started diving into the chakra systems and Ayurveda. And, I started doing all these different trainings, like Kundalini training up in Hawaii. And I just started like devouring yoga and yoga philosophy. And as I learned about the energetics of the body, and it started just clicking to me what a gift the body is, and how we can, plants started coming in. I think plants have always been there, but I think my herbal path started becoming more clear that I was interested in energetics. Like, how do the plants affect our physiology and our energy body, as I was progressing in my yoga studies. And then it was just a very natural dovetailing as those kind of came together in my life.
Yeah. Currently, I want to say you have like a weightlifting practice, and do you still practice yoga? And it pairs nicely with the weightlifting, I would presume, but weightlifting, would you say, is also another way to stay present in your body?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm not listening to like techno music, like pumping. I actually listen to like very calm, tranquil, like yoga, ambient music. Yeah. And for me, weightlifting is about just being in my body and feeling like this actual muscle. Like what happens when I just use that muscle?
Slow, isolated.
So it's very meditative. I still do yoga.
Okay.
Usually what I do is I'll weightlift for an hour, and then I'll run for 40 minutes, and then I'll go and I'll do yoga for 20 minutes. Or sometimes I will, just come up here into this space and I'll do yoga on the rug, or I'll just meditate. It kind of depends on the day. And then I do teach one yoga class now at a recovery center for women.
Oh, that's so cool.
Which has been really cool. So there's a beautiful women's treatment center where they do 12-step work. So I go in there and I teach yoga classes to the groups of women, just teaching them mindfulness, getting them in their body. And just, again, like trying to give them that feeling like you're okay and safe in your body, and you're okay and safe in your mind, so that they can work through their own recovery process.
You do awesome work, Ashley.
Oh, thank you.
That's so cool. With that class that you're teaching at the recovery clinic, are you seeing regulars come back, and are you seeing improvement? Are you seeing like positive feedback from these women through the practice of yoga?
So they have 30-day stays. So they have women that come in for 30 days. So I'll get to see some of them, multiple times in one of their stays, but they're kind of cycling through. But yeah, I think by the end, usually there's a few women that come up and just, like, I have had, people cry and be like, I haven't felt, like, I got in touch with the little girl part of me. I haven't seen that little girl in me and felt her in me since I was a child. And it felt so good just to breathe with her,
Is it like a play thing for them? Does it feel like play? Is that why they're feeling that inner child, or?
Well, no, actually I call them to pay attention to their body and to draw attention to who are you when you're at your best. And then the images will come up for them. So, the yoga that I teach isn't just asana. Like, I'm going there. I'm going to all the places where, in my own recovery from growing up in a family with alcoholism and having an eating disorder, like having worked the steps in my own life, like, they're there, and I just tell them, like, this is yoga, and it might be hard, but there's no better place or time to do this. And to ask these questions and to feel these feelings, and you're safe, it's okay. And then usually after class, I'll take some time to process with them. And some people, it's very simple. It's like, gosh, I didn't know I could stand on one foot. Like, that's so cool. I feel so empowered. I can balance. And for other people, it's deeper, more subtle things that they notice.
It's confidence building. Yeah, I was actually in the sauna the other day at the YMCA with the yoga instructor there, and he was talking about how he loves to teach people basic positions, but then they stay in one simple position for a long period of time. And I have to imagine it's less physical strenuous than it is like mental at that point. If you stay in one position for 20 minutes, it's really like building your mental game. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think that's really true. And yeah, like, the story is like, I can't do this.
Right.
Well, who's saying you can't do this? Can you do it for one more breath?
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing with sobriety. Like, can you just not choose it this time?
Right.
Like, just in this moment. But yeah, yoga is so much more mental than I think most people realize, because people can do physical things more easily than they think they can.
Yeah, right.
So it's getting the mind on board and giving you the spaciousness to just be with yourself. Because like, when do we actually just get to be still and quiet and reflecting of like who you are, how you are?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big things I teach in my classes. My apprenticeship is like, the whole first module is, let's check in with you. How are you doing?
Okay.
Let's look at all of the facets of who you are as a learner, as an herbalist, as a human. And let's like actually take some time to check in and journal about this. Because you can learn herbs and work with herbs, but if you're not like right with yourself,
Totally.
it's not, you're not going to be able to feel the way you want to feel, and I think do the work that you could do.
It reminds me of when I was 18, my friend wanted to be a life coach, and I'm like, you're not ready to be a life coach, bro.
I need a little more life.
Yeah, exactly. 2 questions. You mentioned your program, so I want to get into that, but does Adam do yoga?
He does.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he actually was doing yoga in New York City, and he ran a yoga studio in New York City when he lived there. So when we met, he was doing yoga, and so when we formed our business together, Sky House Yoga, he did astrology, I did herbs, and then we both taught yoga together.
That's so cool.
So yeah, but he doesn't practice yoga. I mean, I think for him, weightlifting is also a meditative practice.
For sure.
And astrology is meditative, just reflecting on the chart and the stars, and that work too.
Can he touch his toes?
He can. Okay. It's been a few, I mean, I shouldn't answer that, but I'm pretty sure he can still.
Respect. So you mentioned your apprenticeship. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Actually, before we get into that, I'm just kind of curious where the name Skyhouse Herbs comes from. You mentioned it kind of originated with the yoga studio, but yeah, a little bit about the origin of the name, and then tell us about the program that you offer.
Sure. Well, so the origin has hippie roots because when I was, I took a year off of school in between my sophomore and my junior, and I bought a van and I traveled around the country because I didn't know, I was studying environmental science and I knew I didn't want to go into that, but I didn't know what. I knew I wanted to go into some sort of medicine. So I took a semester off, me and 3 girlfriends and our dog, bought a van, and we traveled. We visited like all the different schools and hippie towns, and during that time we stopped in Boulder, Colorado, and there was a rainbow gathering happening. And all the kids were like, dirty drumming, and we were like, cool, let's hang out. These are our people. And this one young girl, she was younger than me, and she looked at me and she was like, are you ready for your name, your spiritual name? And I was like, yes. So she said, your name is Sky Dreamer. She said, because when I look into your eyes, I can see that you have big dreams and that your eyes reflect the spaciousness of the sky. And I was like, whoa, cool. So when I went back to school, I went by the name Sky. So everyone in Asheville started calling me Sky. And then when I started in my herbal work, I just kept the name Sky. Then when I moved back to Maryland and everyone called me Ashley, I was like, you know what, this is a little tricky. So I went back to Ashley, but there's still a cohort of people out there who know me as Sky. That's cool. So when my husband and I met before we were married, we were thinking of names. And so the name Sky, we came up with the name Sky House because of my name at one time being Sky, but also this idea that we wanted to create a home-like feeling that brought in all of the elements of the sky, of astrology and the cosmos, and also housing it on Earth. And the Earth was the plants. So Sky House Yoga was a place, and our logo was a house with like a moon on the Earth. And so bringing together the heavens, the Earth in a home dwelling. And so we ran that yoga studio for 11 years in the DC area, and wonderful community. I mean, it was just fabulous. We had retreats, and we had a full apothecary stocked with herbs, and had students that studied with us in person. And then in 2019, I had my second daughter, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, my deep knowing of myself and my vital force said, Ashley, you have to stop. It was so hard because I was so committed to the community, but my health was not doing well. I could tell, my kids were not getting the best of me. So we closed and we moved everything online. And that was actually right before 2020 when COVID hit. Right. And we probably would have had to close anyway. So that was kind of fortunate. So then we moved everything online. My husband kept his name from New York City, which was Nightlight Astrology, and continued to build his work. And then I took Sky House and I took off the yoga and I put herbs on because I really wanted to focus on the herbal side of my career and work. And so Sky House Herbs was born, but we're still under the umbrella of Sky House Yoga. That's still our
Is that the LLC?
That's our LLC,
cool.
is Sky House Yoga.
Nice.
Yeah, and we are even thinking, Adam and I are a little crazy because we were like, maybe we could open up another Sky House Yoga here in Minneapolis, and have a community space where people could come and have movement, astrology, and herbs again, but have it be like a more mature, smaller version of that.
Sure.
So we're thinking about that. So we haven't dismantled everything yet because there's a part of us that thinks we might open that up again here.
You sound like me and Amanda.
I know. It's
we could do this and
we
this
could do
and
this, chickens, goats,
right,
there's all these
exactly.
options, yeah. My school, Sky House Herbs, right now we're offering a fundamentals or foundations apprenticeship. And it's a year-long study course, and it's released in modules, so people can take it at their own pace. And then we have live classes where we get together online once a month. But yeah, I mean, really, the purpose of the foundations is to get people engaged with the plants. Like, I love being in person, but I know that that's not possible for everyone. So we created a program where people can have the plants at home. I have these things called plant pairings. So every module, they have 2 plants that they get to know, and they learn by comparing and contrasting them. So they do, like, for example, nettles and oat straw. They'll take nettles for a week, they'll take oat straw for a week, and then they'll combine them and just see what happens when I do 2 parts this, 1 part this. And I feel like I think people that love herbs love the alchemy and love the Hogwarts part of it. So I really wanted to create it in a way that they could start engaging and interacting with the herbs like from day one. Yeah. So that we have that, it's like that kind of format throughout the whole course, and they learn about how to grow herbs, herbal energetics, a little bit of botany, phytochemistry, plant spirit medicine. There's a whole module on spirits of the plants and how to connect with them. A little bit about a lot about doctrine of signatures, and like, looking for symbols and patterns in the plants, how that relates to astrology. And then, and then a portion on herbal business. Like, what do you do? What do you do when you learn about herbs? Like, how do you make this into something that's uniquely yours that you can then offer to others and be reciprocated with in the form of money?
Yeah, sure.
Or,
livelihood.
Livelihood, because that's an important part of this work.
Absolutely. How are the students receiving the herbs? Are you mailing them out, or you tell them to order it from somewhere? Or?
Yeah, so right now we're partnering with Strobe Apothecary, which are some friends of mine in Maryland.
Nice.
And so they have created bundles. So
That's
for
cool.
every module, there's a bundle that they can order. So that way they can order either all 12 bundles together or just one at a time. Because I know sometimes it's a big investment to order them all. And then I also give them other places like our favorite, Oshala Farms, big shout out, beautiful plants. Zach Woods, Herb Farm, Mountain Rose, and I give them a lot of different options as well.
Awesome. Very cool. So if we're in the DC area, should we try to visit Strobe?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. I've never even heard of them. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're a crystal herb shop.
Oh, love it. That's awesome. So Adam's come up a couple times. You mentioned so Adam, for the listener, has an awesome YouTube channel as well. It's a Nightlight Astrology. I want to say it's at Adam Elenbaas, maybe. Yeah. So we'll leave links to that. Actually, we'll get a guest question from Adam later in the show as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. Awesome. Well, we talked about the origin of Sky House herbs. Maybe we could take a tour of your garden and check out some of the plants growing in your yard.
Sure. That sounds good.
All right, sweet.
So we just built this garden last year, and it was a fundraising project that my husband and I did through our Kickstarter for the 2022 and 2023. And basically every year we give away a bunch of free content and ask people to donate to support us in our work. And so the funds that we gathered and people donated, that's cool. And this is mostly from our YouTube audience. People donated and they got free readings, or they got access to our apprenticeships and courses, and then that money allowed us to build this garden.
Beautiful.
So we actually built it 2 years ago, and it was in the fall, so we couldn't plant yet. So we planted our first season last year, and we started doing garden classes. Nice. So I call them garden gatherings, and people from the community can come learn about herbs, take herbs home for free. I teach them how to do medicine making, plant identification, and then we also do I usually have a topic for each one. So for example, surrender. How do the plants teach us surrender? And then we have an art exercise or a guided meditation on that topic, and then we learn about a medicine that helps with surrender. So
that's cool.
Trying to weave kind of all of the different things I'm interested in into one thing. And then this summer, I'm also bringing in a recovery aspect to it. So we're going to do one of the gatherings where we talk about recovery and sobriety, and how do we, what are the tools that we all have within us, and the plant tools that can help us, if we're struggling with any sort of addiction. It doesn't even have to be, it can be food addiction. Right. It can be emotional relationship addiction, right? Social media addiction, that's a huge one, yeah. And so just sort of talking about the garden and herbs as a place where you can work on that and reflect on it.
I love that. Awesome. Well, we got chamomile right here. Does that help with anything?
Yes. I know you know
Nice
the
little
answer
lead-in.
to that. Yeah, it helps with a ton of things, and I love that it came back. Like I had like 5 plants last year,
Yeah.
and now I've got like, you can see like 30 plants.
Chamomile seems to be the herb gardener's friend.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And one thing I learned about chamomile that I think is really cool is that the more you trample it, the stronger it gets. So like right now, if and I have my girls do this, I'll have them walk on it, before it starts to flower.
Right.
But when you do that, it
Yeah.
actually makes the roots and the plant itself stronger, and it will flower more.
Wow.
So
Likes disturbance.
it likes disturbance. Yeah. So I like that a lot about this herb. And the Latin name Matricaria, care of the mother, Mater Caria. So it to me, it's such a mothering herb. And I just, I use it a lot for my girls when they're having difficulty with regulating emotions or sleep. For myself, when I need a little mothering, because mothers need mothering too. So I'll just drink it as a tea, the flowers as a tea. And I think it's a great plant, and it's so easy to grow.
Yeah.
So it's a great one I like to teach my students about as well, so that they can grow it and they can use it as a medicine. And yeah, and it's not like fragile. Like you don't have to you don't have to be tender with it. Like, it'll come back. It's very resilient.
It's definitely Amelia's favorite tea growing up too. Yeah, she would always resort to the chamomile tea. So you mentioned Matricaria as like a mothering plant. We also have Leonaris cardiaca over here, motherwort.
Yep.
Do you ever pair those two together as like a 1-2 punch with a good mothery hug?
I haven't before. This is my favorite way to use it, honestly.
Just chewing on the leaves.
It's just chewing on the leaves. I love the bitterness, and I feel like Matthew Wood said that like the bitter and acrid from this plant and other herbs, it makes your whole nervous system like shudder a little, and that helps you shake off tension. And I just feel like it, like throughout the day, like whenever I'm out here, I'll just nibble a little bit, and it just gives my whole nervous system like a little bit of like a little shake off. And I love that. But yeah, they are 2 mother herbs, right? Motherwort and then the Matricaria. I think they would go really well together, but I don't think I can get my kids to drink that as a tea.
Yeah, compliance on that one might be an issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. Were there any other plants you wanted to show us?
Gosh, I love this one over here. This one is one of my friends, Trisha McCauley. She was an herbalist in the DC area, also a yoga teacher, who passed really suddenly in 2016. Very tragic story. But she was a friend of mine and an herbalist, and whenever she would always call them volunteers. When there would be an herb that would pop into her garden. She ran a community garden in DC, in the deep city, and so she would be like, "Oh, look, it's another volunteer," and so I just love that. So I try to use that to keep her spirit alive. So this is one of my favorite and my kids' favorite herbs, which is violet, and it's just your common, it's just your common field violet, and it's an edible. And I just love, like, it has mucilage in it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it coats your throat. It's really good for the throat. And I've been struggling with my voice for about 3 months. I'm working on some larynx and probably throat chakra stuff too, if I'm being real stuff. But this is really good for all of that, for the throat. So soothing, so demulcent, so healing. And Amanda Dilday talks a lot about it in her book, Flowers for a Girl. And just for her, it was the herb that allowed her to speak about the abuse that she had endured. It was like the herb that told her, you can say this out loud. And so I always think about that too, is like, when you need courage to say something that's hard, or even to remember something that maybe you had forgotten about that needs to be spoken, that this is a great herb for working with that.
We actually had a flower before we came out here.
Oh, nice.
Just on our little neighborhood walk, we were like, let's have a flower. So yeah. You reminded me, I need to reach back out to Amanda Dilday. It's been a long time. It's been a few years. So yeah. She does great work. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you for the tour.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting to see how this progresses in the next month or two.
Yeah.
So,
it's like still kind of sleeping here, but it'll really get ramped up. I'll send you some photos.
Please do. Absolutely. Is there a place on your website where folks can learn more about your events that you hold out here?
Yeah, so if they go to skyhouseherbs.com, click on events, you'll see garden gatherings.
Nice.
And then
All
people
right.
can just register there
Very
and
cool.
join. And they're once a month through the whole summer into the fall.
Yeah.
So they can come to one or they can come to all of them.
Yeah.
And they're open to everyone.
Is there plans of doing yoga in the garden at some point?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's
That's always
percolating.
fun.
But
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
we've got some space for that too.
Awesome. Well, let's go back and finish the interview.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that tour. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. This might be a good time to bring in a guest, your husband, Adam Elenbaas. Adam, why don't you ask Ashley a super secret special question?
A super secret.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, my question is, I want to know what herb you think that I embody. If you had to pick an herb that matches with me, and then with each of our girls, Summer and Gigi, like what herbs
Oh, interesting.
embody our personalities?
Okay, well, you're a very mercurial person to me. Like, you change, you morph. We were just talking about cutting your hair. So I feel like the herb would have to be something that goes through lots of different phases and cycles.
Okay.
So, boy, I think maybe one that comes to mind, I keep thinking about nettles for some reason. I think, nettles in some ways, you've got a lot of Mars energy and you're very pointed and direct with the way that you speak.
I sting people.
You sting people. You don't sting people. You help illuminate where they need to bring more attention.
Okay, I'm good for arthritis.
But I think also, gosh, for the Mercury piece, boy, I almost wonder. I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe that's part of the Mercury about you, is that it's really hard to pin down exactly
Fair enough.
what you are. Let me go to the girls and let me see if something plant
yeah.
pops in. Okay, so for Virginia, our older daughter, she's very fiery, very feisty, very social. I feel like she's like a chamomile flower. She's just like really like happy, bubbly. She likes to be in groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
She's also very mothering, she loves to
yeah.
take care of others and make sure everyone has what they need.
She's definitely the mom of her little group of friends all the time.
She is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Summer, our little Leo lion, I would say, gosh, I think Dandelion. She's a tough cookie.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
really resilient.
She's a Leo.
She's a Leo.
Yeah. Mars in the first house. She's strong personality.
She's very resilient, but she can be a little bitter. Sometimes she can get stuck in being bitter, and that taproot can go down in stubbornness. So I think that's a really good one for her. And I was thinking back to you and the mercurial herb. I was thinking maybe lady's mantle.
Huh.
Because the Latin name is Alchemilla, which is the little alchemist. And
Okay.
and you're a Cancer, and so you like create these little pools of water, and they allowing people to reflect, I think, through your astrology work.
Oh, that's cool.
So you like create these little pools where people can come and look at themselves and their psychology, and they form that water, and that water is very healing.
I like that better than nettles.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, that's cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Do you have a plant in mind for her?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, let me think here. Because my knowledge of plants is not what Ashley's
sure.
is. But, gosh, yes. Well, the plant that Ashley loves so much that comes to my mind right away is yarrow. And I'm not, I don't know if I could articulate it so well because I don't know as much about the plant signature as you, but you're all about yarrow. Like you're from
I do like it.
the tattoo that you have to, just like whenever we're out and we see yarrow, you always get really, really excited. And so I think there's something about you that's yarrow-ish, although I don't think I'm the best at describing the doctrine of the signatures to, match it so well, but you're yarrow, I think.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Adam, for the guest question. Once again, you can check out his work at Nightlight Astrology on YouTube, Adam Elenbaas. So, all right, well, let's keep the conversation rolling here. One thing I really admire about your work is your openness and your vulnerability to your community. And we recently watched a video where you talked about herbs for weight loss. And I want to say, going into it, you might, the viewer might be like, oh, I really want to watch this so I can learn how to shed these excess pounds, but just by simply taking a capsule of this or that herb. And clearly that's not the case. You go into a lot more. You're vulnerable about your story and your journey with this whole thing. So I'm actually currently on a weight loss regimen right now. And I want to say one of the reasons, which maybe you get into a little bit, but is for me personally, and I might actually make a video about my weight loss journey as well and talk about it. And I want to say one of the main pillars is having a why. And my why is I want to play basketball again without being in massive amounts of pain. I have Osgood slaughter in my knee, so I have joint issues, and I feel like I'll be able to play basketball again if I shed some pounds or whatever. So there's a legitimate why behind this. And enough about me, though. I would like to hear your thoughts around herbs for weight loss, quote unquote, and just like that general topic, if you will.
I love that you said the why, because I think that is that's at the heart of it.
Yeah.
And it's like any change that we want to make, if we don't know why we're doing it, if it just seems like a good idea, like the chances of us actually going through with it are very low. And I did totally use that like title as trying to hook people in.
Totally.
Because most people think, oh, well, an herbalist would give me this capsule.
Right.
And that's not at all the way it works. And, I think kind of like when I was talking about yoga and falling in love with your body, I mean, so much of weight loss and the conversation we have is about like what we don't like about ourselves or what we're missing, and there's so little talk about health gain. And I want to flip the narrative a little bit, because we can be healthy in so many different shapes and sizes of bodies. So it's not about losing weight and being obsessed with this number. And actually, it's funny because since I've been lifting weights, I've gained weight. And like that
Muscle
was hard
weighs
for
more
me.
than fat.
And it was like it was a struggle. It's like, well, no.
Right. Don't get caught in that.
That it's not about the number. It's about gaining health and what is it that you want. And I want to be strong. So I'm lifting weights because I want to be able to continue to lift my kids.
Right.
I'm only 5'2". I'm very short and petite, but I want to be a strong, petite woman. I want to be able to carry the big bags of compost down that huge hill to the garden. And so I think, in the video, what I was trying to do was kind of reframe, what is a healthy way for us to think about our bodies, and also the idea of weight as being something that connects us to the earth. Like we need weight. We need to be weighty.
Amanda resonated with that part. She really liked when you overheard that.
Yeah, because then we start to think about the gift of being in the body and the gift of having this weightiness that grounds us. And then I talk about herbs that can be health building. And for me, I'm a vitalist. That's the tradition that I follow as an herbalist. And so for me, it's like, what mental things, what physical things, like foods can we take away so that the vital force can do the work that it's meant to do and help us to feel the way we want to feel. Because most of us, it's not about a number, it's about wanting to feel good, playing basketball, running around with our kids. And so if we can focus on that and take away the things that dampen that, we'll be so much more served, and herbs can do that. Herbs can help, like nettles and oat straw and some of our mushrooms. They can help build the vital force, but it's not because something's bad or wrong with us, and I think that's the part that I feel really passionate about.
I love it. So for the full spiel, check out the video. I loved it. We loved it. It was awesome.
Thank
we'll leave
you.
a link to that. Yeah, absolutely. On the podcast show notes. That was another like around 30-ish minutes or so, and it's just so.
Sometimes I try to keep them like 20, 25, but sometimes when I get really revved up, they go longer.
Do you going into these videos, do you like just have a notepad with like bullet points, and you kind of like, I for sure want to cover these topics? Do you script it?
I do. Yeah, I do better. I've always done that. So I'll first come up with a title. Like I'll like get
herbs for weight loss.
I'll get or like a topic. I'll get like a topic or a title, and then I'll start to think through the bullet points and the things and what I want to cover. And then I always start with a prayer. So I light a candle before I record every video.
That's great.
And I just say, God, help me to say the things that will be helpful. Help me to get out of my own way. And, please let these be words that serve. And then I have a mantra that I repeat 3 times. And then I hit record.
I love that.
And that really helps me because, then I know, I feel more like I'm in a flow state of speaking what is going to be relevant for those that are listening. And also it helps me calm my mind so that I'm not so wrapped up in doing it right, which I can do if I don't do that part.
I'm sporadic with the prayer beforehand. I'll do it sometimes, but not every time. And you're saying you do it every time. And it gets your mind right, and because really we're here to serve. Like we want to remind ourselves of that, because otherwise, if we forget that, we get so wrapped up in maybe our own insecurities. We're like, So yeah, I need to remember to do that every time to really just channel, and get ready for the interview or whatever we're doing. So. I did not do that before this interview. I asked Amanda for some reassurance. But cool. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about that. It's a super important topic. And well, you mentioned the Vitalist, and I'd be remiss to go a whole Herbalist Hour without asking who some of your mentors have been. I've always been curious. Maybe I knew. I don't know. But remind me, who did you study with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my first herbal teacher was Corinna Wood in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh.
I did herb walks with her
Nice.
back in 1997.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was a long time ago. And then I started really studying herbs at MUIH. It was then Thai Sophia. So my teachers were Bevan Clare, Camille Freeman, who you just interviewed.
Yep.
James Snow, and one of the teachers who really influenced me was Simon Mills.
Yeah.
And he was my clinical supervisor. So when I was seeing clients, he would come in and sit next to me, look over my notes, make sure that my formulas and, the questions I was asking were right. He'd help me, look over my notes. And he just had such an easy way about him. He was very much like a clinical herbalist. But he'd also be like, just throw in a little bit of yarrow, just a little bit, just a few drops. Don't think of too hard, And he really encouraged me to be with the person and not the problem, and that was really helpful for me as a clinician. After that, when I graduated from MUIH, I started studying with Matthew Wood, because one of the things that I felt like I wanted more of at the end of my 3-year training was the energetics and the spiritual part. So I found Matthew's book, The Book of Herbal Wisdom, and read it voraciously. And then I just looked, where is this guy? Where do I find him? And so I started, he was teaching on the East Coast. And so anytime he would be at Kat Mayer's school, I would go and just sit at his feet. And Teresa Boardwine's school, Green Comfort, I went there maybe 5 or 6 times. And sat at his feet in the yurt with Amanda Dilday and a lot of other people who
Amanda.
are, yeah. So just, a great community around Matthew Wood. So, he's probably, I would say, my most influential teacher to date, because he's also into astrology, which is nice. So I feel like the way he sees the plants, the way that he brings vitalism in, I like the drop doses he uses. I sometimes use drop doses. I sometimes use more like therapeutic range. But the way he approaches single plant remedies really resonates with me.
What a diverse and thorough herbal background. Yeah. I'm yet to meet James Snow or Simon Mills, but I've heard lots of great things. Of course, Camille Freeman and Bevan are friends of the program, and Corinna Wood, for that matter. She's been on the show as well. So
cool.
Very, very neat. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Maybe a couple more questions before we wrap up and get out of here. What do you love about Minnesota?
Well, I was born here.
Yeah.
So, I had a friend, Sanjeevani, who I studied yoga with, and she was an Ayurvedic practitioner, and she said, the actual land that you were born on, the stars and everything align because you chose where you were born. And she said she studied with the mamas in Peru. I don't know if you know the great-grandmothers. Like there's I think 8 indigenous women in Peru who travel the world trying to teach people about helping the earth as a organism. So she studied with them for a long time, and the mamas told her that people keep leaving their homeland. They need to go back and teach what they've learned from their travels. Like the whole reason to travel is to go back home and teach.
Yeah.
And I was living in Maryland. I had zero interest in moving back to Minnesota, but I never forgot that, because when she said that, it hit me in a way where I was like, oh. So then I met my husband. He's from Minnesota.
Wow.
So things kind of started coming together. And when we had children, it was like, you know what? I want to go home. Like, this is home to me. Because every summer we would come back here and stay at my grandparents' cabin, and all my family, we've got big family, a Sicilian family, Czech family, like 9 kids, like tons of family here. And so this feels like home. So that's why I came back, is I want to share what I've learned with the people that are in my homeland. And the other reason is because of a lot of the herbs Matthew Wood taught about.
Right.
Are from the Midwest. And I'd be like, sweet leaf, Monarda fistulosa, like what is that?
Yeah.
Or blue vervain. They didn't grow in Maryland. So as soon as I started seeing them here, like I was like, these are my medicines.
Cool.
So I want to live with my medicines, and I want to live back where I started. So that's
Did
what
you
brought
meet
me
Adam
back.
outside of Minnesota?
Yeah, so he was
Wow.
living in New York City, and I was in
Right.
DC.
Right.
And we actually met a person who was from Minnesota as well,
Wow.
who said to me, Ashley, you need to meet this astrologer in New York. He's a Minnesotan as well.
Wow.
Because, Minnesotans got to stick together,
Sure, yeah.
it's Midwest culture thing. So when I did an astrology reading with Adam,
Yeah.
when he was in New York, and we both were like sparks. So
Yeah,
that was
that's
like
so
the beginning
cool.
of our little love story.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's cute. What advice would you give to someone who is like a budding herbalist? They're getting into it. They've got that spark, but they're wanting to make it their livelihood. What advice would you give to that person to make herbalism their business, if you will?
I guess I would say start small, because I think it's a very overwhelming field. There's so many different places and directions you can go, but like start with what you love. Like, what do you love about the plants? Is it gardening? Is it people and doing the matchmaking thing? Do you love making medicines? So just start with like the thing that really sparks you the most, and then trust that in time you'll pick up all the other pieces. And I would also give them the advice of finding their herbal tribe, wherever they are, like finding other people who like to talk about plants and geek out about plant stuff, and because your roots will get stronger, and you'll grow as a person and as an herbalist if you surround yourself in a garden of other people who think similarly.
It's the best.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my first plant walk. Seeing the plants in person for the first time, and you're so enamored by it, but then you're surrounded by all these other people who are equally geeking out
Taking
over it.
notes, and
Yeah.
some people are taking pictures, and you're like,
It's intoxicating.
it is.
Yeah,
It is.
absolutely. Well, this has been a lot of fun. You're very inspiring. You inspired me. I know you inspired the audience. Do you have any just like closing thoughts or anything you want to say before we wrap up and get out of here?
Well, when I had you on my show,
Yeah.
you asked me a question, even though I was interviewing you. So
Oh, yeah.
I want to close with a question for you. No, it'll be easy.
Yeah.
Tell me about a book that has really inspired you in your work as an herbalist and as an herbal. Like I feel like you're like an herbal connector.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, it's funny you say it, a book that inspired me, and I'm like, for what does it have to be in the herbal realm?
No, it can be anything.
Because we collect books. We get sent books all the time now that we have a podcast, and I'm like, I need to make more time to read these things. But the first book that came to mind when you said book that inspired you, and I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I loved this book. It's by an author named Manly P. Hall. It was when I first started really getting into like religion and spirituality and stuff like that. So I was reading all these different religion and spirituality books, and I was just consuming, and I never really got happier. I was continuously dealing with depression and sadness, and I was like, I don't get it. I'm fasting. I'm eating right. I'm meditating. I'm reading all these spiritual texts and books and stuff like that. And Manly P. Hall had a bunch of those types of books, and he wrote a book called Words to the Wise, and I'll never forget it. I got it from Smith Family Bookstore in Eugene, Oregon, and on the cover was a old man crossing his legs with a long gray beard and long gray hair, and I was like, I'm getting goosebumps right now. I was like, that's what I want to be. You know, I want to be in a cave somewhere, just meditating and be enlightened and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I was like, this is the book. This is going to be the book that's going to change my life finally. And then I read it, and it was literally the exact opposite thesis. It was basically saying, do work in the world. Stop mental masturbation, if you will, spiritual, like, you know, you always want the next thing, the next thing, and the next thing. And it just told me to find some sort of, so I guess this is what, kind of in herbalism, because that's when I started my path to herbalism.
Interesting.
That's when it started. It was that, along with Earl Nightingale, called The Strangest Secret, where he basically says, have a path, you are what you think about all day long. Find a purpose, and those two kind of combined together at the right time for me. And I was like, it was kind of relieving. It was very relieving to finally have something to work towards, because I just felt like I was just going in circles.
Yeah.
I just kept going deeper and deeper into this like spirituality thing. But yeah, I mean, I want to say that book came to me at the perfect time in my life, and yeah, so I'm just very grateful to have had that experience and then finally start to have a direction, which then led me to, you know, Mountain Rose Herbs, moving from Pleasant Hill, Oregon to Eugene, Oregon. I'm gonna go get a job there.
Yeah.
Boom, you know. Then I had this idea for HerbRally. Boom, I'm gonna do that. I just started feeling useful in the world, and as that was happening, my confidence level was growing, and I became happier and happier, and I attribute that to actually having a mission as opposed to being so insular.
Yeah.
It was not healthy for me. So yeah, it was just, now I'm obsessed with just doing more and more and more work, but I'm like maybe the opposite of the other end of the pendulum swing or whatever. So I do feel like I'm kind of, okay, I could let up a little bit and just like stay present, be in the moment, and enjoy the fruits of my labor. But yeah, it's a never-ending journey.
Yeah.
But I'm just thankful to finally have found work that's important to me and hopefully important to the world. So in a roundabout way, that's my favorite herbal book.
I love it. Yeah, and you are such a gift. I mean, the
you.
work that you and Amanda do to just bring people's voices into the public, so that people can hear about the work that herbalists are doing, because it's not, you know, we're not on the news, you know, we're not showing up like, you know, in terms of like professional options at the top of Google searches. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that book, because it's kind of like for yoga with me, it got you in your body. It got you
100%.
back in your body with a direction.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's such a gift to get that hit from wherever it comes from. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad I asked that question.
That was cool. You turned the tables on me. I love that. What was the question I asked you? I can't remember.
You asked me what my favorite herb was at the moment, I think.
Oh yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What herb were you vibing with? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. This has been so much fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Herbalist Hour. That's going to do it. Thanks to Amanda for shooting the video and editing. And thanks to y'all for tuning in as always. We'll see you in the very next episode. Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.